Hello everybody, it's podcast time again, and today I actually wanted to talk about something. This is probably going to be a bit of a shorter one, definitely more of a rant style video than anything else, but I wanted to talk about the very difficult and often strange business these days of album rollouts. Now, we all love an album, right? There is nothing that gets my blood going more than when one of my 15 or 20 favourite artists is gearing up to release an album. Last year, I'd say the big hitter was Underworld's Strawberry Hotel. I have not felt hype like that for an album in quite a few years that I can remember, and that's always a great feeling. But it seems like now, more than ever, people aren't just happy with the standard song and dance, release a single, maybe release a couple more over the next few months, maybe 2 months before you give any concrete album details, and then maybe 1 or 2 months down the line after that, maybe a bit longer, then the album comes out, everyone's happy because it's great, hunky-dory, right? That's like standard procedure. No, very strange ways of rolling out albums have been employed in recent years, some of which work effectively, and some of which I think is either annoying or just has no purpose beyond just gimmickry, basically, which I wanted to go over today. And what really spurred this on was the release of the upcoming Faithless album Champion Sound, due out in full in September. And I say in full because what they're doing is maybe one of the most annoying ways of rolling out an album that I've seen, which is releasing your album not singles at a time, but segments at a time. Well, what they're doing, I'll tell you what they're doing. They're releasing a quarter of the album every month until September. So we got the first quarter, or the first side, Forever Free, in June. And then just recently, we got the second side, Phone Number, and then when August rolls around, we'll get the third side, and then in September, the whole album will be released. Already, I can see multiple problems. The principal one being, if you roll out an album like this, you kill your own hype instantly, right? Because the thing is, I'll get onto this in a minute, but it's not necessarily about the material. It's just about how it's rolled out. Because think about it, right? So the two sides that have been released so far have been about 35 minutes-ish between them, right? So if we extrapolate out of that, we can say that the album is probably going to be about 75 minutes long. That's a long album, right? I won't say, the Strawberry Hotel was nearly 70 minutes, and that was my favourite album of 2024, but it was a big undertaking, and this is exactly the same. But what I'm saying is, you want to build hype for an album like that, for an album that grand in scale. You don't want to be, for lack of a better phrase, revealing all the cards up your sleeve too early, which I feel like that's what they're doing, because what was even more stupid, right, is that there's a few things about this album rollout that perplex me. The segmented nature of it being one of them, but a second one being, they released a couple of the singles as standalones, but then released the first quarter, but then two of the singles that had already been released individually weren't in quarter one anyway. And then where were they? The ones that had already been released, some of them, they were in quarter four. So actually, even if they were just to release a quarter at a time, we've still ended up with 2 more songs than we're even supposed to have at this point, to the point where even though side 4 is 5 songs long, I'm starting to think by the time we get to August, and over 3/4 of the album is already released, I'm thinking unless the 3 tracks that have been left out are the best songs on the album, what fucking difference can 3 songs possibly make to the... I mean, I know that's a bit of a reductive statement, because surely the answer could be it could make loads of difference if they were the 3 best ones, and that's true, but if I'm just thinking on the most basic level of if you've got nearly 80% of an album released already, because the way that it's been rolled out, they didn't really think this through properly, you can essentially start putting together your thoughts for the album a month in advance. When it comes to the full album experience, you won't have that thing of, let's say it's a 10-track album that had 3 singles off it, and let's say the singles are tracks 1, 2, and 4, right? Let's say that's the case. So you go down, you get to track 4, and you go, right, I've got a whole other half of the album now ready to be discovered. Whereas now, when I listen to Champion Sound in November, I'll basically be listening to the first hour of it, going, yep, I know how this is going to go, I know how this is going, I know how this is going, and I'm basically just holding my breath for the remaining 15 minutes of material that they've not let us have yet, which just isn't the same thing at all. I mean, I know this is a very superficial way of looking at it as well, but then, if you think about it, by the time the Faithless album comes out, it's going to feel less like an album. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you've not got nearly as much kind of mystery to uncover, which to me is always half of the fun of listening to an album, is hearing the tracks that weren't singles. Like, what surprises could they have up their sleeve? Because I think, as a general rule of thumb, no track that's been released as a single should be the best song on the album. If it is, you failed, right? So that is kind of a bit of a... I mean, it's not widely applicable. Obviously, there are exceptions, but, I find that's a pretty good general rule of thumb. But with Faithless in that way, they're putting their eggs all in the one basket of the 3 tracks that they haven't put out yet, which, I mean, they may be the 3 best ones on the record, but I'm just saying, you shouldn't really... It doesn't make sense to me to put yourself in the position where, it's going to do... And that's just me coming from my perspective, but also, it makes them feel less like an album and more like a singles compilation, right? Like, it might as well be, because what you've got, essentially, by the time the album comes out, is 12 singles, and then 3 bonus tracks, like, plucked on the end of it. I actually got this wrong, so in total there's only 13 tracks on the Faithless album, which means that 10 of them will end up being pre-album singles, if you like, with the 3 extra tracks on. So it's not quite as bad as I made out, but still pretty bad. It doesn't make for a good album experience, right? If over half of what you're hearing you've already heard months prior. That's, it reminds me of when Jonas Hill, Jonas Blue, released an album in, 2019, but then one of the songs on it was his first single that he released 4 years before. I mean, to me, personally, that's, like I say, half the excitement of the album is the new stuff that you get to uncover. I'm not going to be excited if most of the tracks on it are stuff that I've heard months or even years before. That just doesn't make fucking sense to me. It's the same with Pendulum as well. Like, their new album, Inertia, that's out in August, it's 15 tracks long, or 16, or something like that. But they've been putting out material as the reformed Pendulum since 2021. They put out an EP in 2021 and an EP, I think, in 2023. And then they've released 2 singles from this upcoming album. And then when the album got released, I was like, oh, cool, let's see what the tracklist is. Except what the tracklist is a 15-song tracklist with the 2 singles that were released already, fair enough. But then, as well, all 8 tracks from both EPs that have already been released 1 over 4 years ago. And so we only get 4 or 5 new songs, actually new songs, by the time the album releases, because some of the material, in fact about a quarter of the material, is 4 fucking years old. And yes, I know that Underworld on Strawberry Hotel, they released And the Colour Red like a year and a half before the album even came out. And like I say, there are exceptions, because I think that song still goes hard. And also, because of how Underworld handled that rollout, they let that single sit there for 6 months before they released the next one. And then they didn't release the next one after that for another 3 months after that as well. And then the album didn't come out until October. So they released 2 singles a year before the album came out and didn't release another one until 8 weeks before. So that is how you create hype. You almost create hype through the scarcity of material. Because then you look and you've got, right, we've got about just shy of 20 minutes of singles here. And then you look at the album and it's 70 minutes long and you go, oh geez, this is going to be great. Whereas with Faithless, you look and they've got over an hour worth of singles. And you're going, oh, well, this will be a bit of a... not quite, it won't have the same appeal. It won't have nearly the same excitement. I don't know what point I'm trying to get at, but hopefully this makes sense. And the thing that's even more frustrating about it as well, the material's fucking good as well. Like, it's not even like it's bad music, because their album, All Blessed, right, I think I gave it a strong 3 at the time in a review when it came out, which I can say in retrospect is a bit harsh. Like, yeah, it's not a good album, okay? But there are definitely songs on that I was a bit too harsh on. Namely, I Need Someone with Nathan Ball. That is actually, I think, a much better track than I gave it credit for initially. But that album was not good. This album, however, Champion Sound, the songs that we got from it, miles better. Absolute miles better. I cannot even stress to you how excited I am for this album, because the first half, or the first side I should say, Forever 3, you know, that had the really touching intro from Maxi on the title track, and then you had the collaboration with LSK, which was fantastic. You had a really long form, progressive, kind of classic Faithless track, and then you had a more sort of modern, kind of, you know, short, snappy EDM type track on the back end, which is great. And then the second track, second side I should say, Phone Number, is kind of a more progressive all-in-one suite with Nathan Ball and Amelia Fox featuring on every track, but it gives it a really cool through line to the point where the points where the songs separate from each other, I couldn't even realise. But what that does is create a really cohesive and really cool listening experience, and there are also fantastic melodies and vocal performances all over it. And even the 2 tracks that have been released as like separate singles by accident from side 4, they're decent as well. I mean, having BB Rexa on a Faithless song is not something I ever thought I'd see in my life, but it actually goes over a lot better than it has any right to do, so I will say that. So, like I say, it's not even to do with the material, because the material is great, and I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing what they've got in store next, but just as an album listening experience, there just won't be nearly that same amount of excitement for me personally as there would be, which I think is kind of a shame. I mean, the other key examples as well is Star-Lord with Fantasy Void, when he released kind of an EP of songs from the album like every couple weeks or so. So you had like a Fantasy Void Spring, Fantasy Void Summer, Fantasy Void Autumn, etc, etc. But then by the time that Winter got released, like all of them I think were like 3-song EPs until Fantasy Void Winter got released, and that had like 10 songs on it or something, which, like, what the fuck is even the point? You literally set yourself up for success, because if you just released 4 songs on each, like, yeah, you would have like released 2/3 of the album, but at least you would have had like 8 songs in your up your sleeves. But instead you decided not to even do that. You know, you decided like, oh, so there's 8 songs left. I could just release 4 of them and have 4 left, or however many it was, I can't remember. But no, you don't do that. You just release all of the ones that are left, instantly killing all your hype. Meaning that the full Fantasy Void album had 22 songs on it. But if you just released 3 at a time in 4 bits, you would have had like 10 songs at your disposal, which is nearly half the album, you know, not great, but there would at least have still been some hype there, you know, it would have helped. But no, what we got is a compilation of EPs. It's not even an album, it's a compilation of EPs, and that's how I feel about Faithless as well. I mean, at least, you know, when Champion Sound comes out, they will have the 3 songs that hadn't been released yet, but when you know, in terms of Fantasy Void, it's just an EP compilation. Like, it's every single that's been released in order exactly. He didn't even switch up the track list. You know, he could have like switched the songs around a bit, maybe created some kind of structure like, oh, okay, so the songs are actually meant to work in this order because of some thematic. No, he just released them in exactly the order that they were released in the first place. And not to mention that it is maybe the worst album I'd ever had to sit through in my life. And I guess the other example would be Quadeca with the Scrapyard series, which, in fairness to Quadeca, I think he actually did it quite well, in that he only released the first 3 parts of Scrapyard. So he had Scrapyard 1, 2 and 3, which in summation had 8 songs between them, excuse me. And then the Scrapyard album, I believe, had 15 songs. So that was still over half the album being released, and I think they were all put in the order that they were, no, they weren't, actually. Credit to Quadeca, I got this wrong. So, yeah, he did release, 8 songs out of the 15 that were there. Kind of a stupid move, in my mind, but at least what I can say for Quadeca is that he did have nearly pretty much half the album unreleased, so that gave it some level of intrigue when the final album itself came out, which is good. But then also, he switched the order around a little bit. So the order of the album isn't just Scrapyard 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's tracks from each kind of scattered throughout, which, I mean, yeah, it's not exactly the same as having new songs to dive into, but at least there was like some thought put into like rearranging the order to do something kind of cool with it, I presume. I mean, I haven't listened to Scrapyard in full since it came out, or close to it, but, at least I can give some points for artistic credentials in terms of actually putting an album experience together, which is not something I could say for Fantasy Void at all, or indeed Faithless, really, in that matter, as good as the material itself might be, which again is the biggest shame out of all of this, is that, as good as the material might be, if you can't put a good, exciting, interesting album experience together, then I'm going to be much less interested, because we already know that the songs on the Faithless album are just going to be the songs as they release them, because they're releasing them aside of the album at a time, so we know they're going to be in that order. People need to realise that creating hype is almost just as important as the music that's behind it, because if you kill your album rollout, the music might be fantastic, but it's always going to be kind of weird hanging cloud that hangs over it of the way they handled this release was fucking weird. I mean, the songs slap, but they could have handled it a lot better, which you could make the best album in the world, but if you roll your album out in a weird way for no reason whatsoever, that's going to be a cloud hanging over it, no matter what you do about it. And I guess actually talking about Quadeca leads me onto another thing, which is just general gimmicks, album rollout gimmicks that have been happening recently that I really don't like. I mean, this is a bit of a shorter rant this time. I mean, given that I've already been ranting for 20 minutes nearly, maybe not. Basically, what I did is I went through albums that have been released in the last 5 or 6 years or so, right? And I basically said, which ones are the ones where the way that they rolled out the album really either annoyed me or irritated me or just generally confused me, or actually even had some good examples of non-typical album rollouts. There are 3 in particular that are very good examples, in fact 4, but there is one that really got my goat, which was Joji's Smithereens album, which was released as a side A and side B on streaming services. So it would have the first 5 songs on essentially disc 1, and then the next 4 songs on disc 2, which the album is barely 25 minutes long. You do not need to create that degree of separation, except when you listen to the album, you realise it's because most of the material on side A sounds like it has fucking effort put into it, and most of the material on side B, it doesn't sound like there's that much effort being put into it. Like I've said, you could switch Dissolve and Yukon on that track list, right? If you switch them around, put Yukon on the A side and put Dissolve on the B side, I said that you would have an album of 5 songs that sound like they actually have some degree of effort put into them, and then a whole side of bad songs. And it's not even that, because Feeling Like the End, the second track on side A, isn't even fucking good. It's not good. So essentially, what you could put all the good songs on one side of the album, which is 4 songs, and all of the bad ones on another side, which is over half the album. But still, this level of gimmickry for an album that isn't even half an hour long, it felt like he was really trying to dress the album up in some level of thematicism to just cover up the fact that he could barely write 4 songs in the time that he had to put the album together. And I genuinely think it's the case of he released Glimpse of Us, which was a really massive, huge, incredible song, but then his label kind of scrambled together to get more songs together. I mean, there are a couple good ones. Die For You is really good, I think. Before the Day Is Over is another really good one, and Yukon is the other major highlight that I can point to. But those are 4 songs on a 9-song album that's not even a half an hour long. You can put them all on one side of the album, but to be fair, the album shouldn't even have sides because it's not even a half an hour long. This fucking video is going to be longer than that fucking album is. The marketing for that was so fucking stupid as well. It was side A is big budget, contemporary pop, and side B is lo-fi bedroom bangers, and it's basically code for, again, side A is songs that had some degree of effort put into them, whether they were good or not, and side B is stuff that we threw together in 45 minutes for the sake of a label executive, is what it seems like to me. So just kind of like, coating your album in this kind of like, oh no, this album actually has discs, it has sides, it has blah blah blah, when it's streaming. I mean, at least Faithless, I can say that they said the reason they made a double album is because they were told that their next album was going to be pressed as a double album. Why they would tell them that so far in advance, I don't know, but at least then they had the wherewithal to go, oh, well, if our album's being pressed as a double album, we might as well make fucking use of the time, which, yeah, well done. Or at least I did think that until I saw that she said this in the Evening Standard. In which case, why did you even fucking bother then? Just put them out as, like, a separated EP series. I mean, I'll talk about in a minute why maybe creating that degree of separation between a series, like a disconnected series of EPs and an album. I'm about to give an example later on in which that is actually like a helpful, worthwhile thing to do for various reasons that I'll get onto. But like, if you're saying like, oh, we're doing an album because it's a double album and we might as well make use of 4 sides of vinyl, but then you turn around and say this, what the fuck am I meant to get out of this? That I'm not supposed to listen to the album? Or if I do, that I'm not, like, listening to it or enjoying it the way that you wanted me to? Or, like, what's the fucking point of it? But when you're creating an album that I'm pretty sure it might not even be 25 minutes long, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, the album isn't even fucking 25 minutes long, it's 24 minutes and 23 seconds! What the fuck is that? Oh. So that's that example. But another one is what I like to call the coming soon phenomenon, which does my head in. This is basically just where artists kill hype, not by releasing too many singles at once, not by doing any weird kind of semantic flim-flam with their albums, no, but just saying that an album or a project is coming soon without giving any sense of timescale whatsoever. Quadeca is the worst offender for this recently. He's been saying that his album, Vanisher Horizon Scraper, will be coming soon for as long as I can even remember. The amount of times he's tweeted being like, oh, I've just listened to the album and it's the best thing I've heard in my life. Like, you're just fucking teasing people at this point. And not even teasing in the sense of like, oh, the album's coming in August, guys, August, this'll be you. It's just like, no, soon. It'll be released soon, at some point before the fucking heat death of the universe, probably. Like, I don't get that, right? Like, if you don't have a release window set for an album, don't fucking say anything yet. I think it's only like, release a single, sure, but don't be like, oh, album coming soon, because soon could mean anything. It could mean 2 weeks or 2 fucking years. It don't mean anything. It's a fucking nonsense phrase. It's like the new Censor album, right, that I'm pretty sure is going to be called Dissident Frequency. I love Censor. They're one of my favourite bands at the minute, but like, their new album has been in the works, teased at fans for, I think, longer than 5 years. And they're very active underneath their Facebook comments, which is something I can definitely appreciate. But the amount of albums coming soon, it's being mixed, we're working on it, it's happening, please guys, stay patient. It's like, yeah, we're fucking trying. But then, like, literally just less than a week ago, we got told that the album was either being mastered or had just finished mastering. Like, to be fair, they had given kind of an idea that, the album was going to be released around September, October, because that's when they were going to be doing shows this year, right? Which, fine, that's alright. But, like, the years and years before then of, like, the album's coming soon, it's happening, and it's like, that does my head in with any artist. The Prodigy is maybe the worst for that at the minute, because I swear to God, Liam has been saying we'll get a new album every year since 2021, and it's not happened, and I'm not happy. And I swear to God, you have to have the patience of a Buddhist monk to be a Prodigy fan, I feel like. Because, granted, right, the first time we got new material since No Tourists was May of 2023, right? In the nearly 18 months, in fact, the over 2 years that since that has happened, we have got a grand total of not even 8 minutes of material. Whereas with No Tourists, you know, the first tracks got debuted in December 2017, the first single came out in June 2018. That's like a fairly decently fast turnaround, right? Not 2 years. We've been waiting so long for this. In fact, there's a chance now that Disrupt Your Flow, the first track that got played in May of 2023, it might not even be on the fucking album at this point. Fucking all of them might not even be on the album. I mean, it would suck, because the amount of unreleased material that the Prodigy have played live and never released, you could fill fucking 6 albums with that, right? And I'm sure a lot of people would, but at least that gives you the idea that we're only getting the best of the best, hopefully. So, you know, I mean, hopefully they don't do any side A, side B, side C shenanigans with this one, because if they do, I swear to God, I mean, I'd be happy for the material, but like I say, I'd be annoyed, because I'd be like, part of the mystique is looking at the track list and going like, oh, you know, I wonder what a track like Beyond the Death Ray sounds like. You know, it could have been this like uber epic, like heavy dubstep cut, and no, it's like an awesome cinematic interlude thing, and you're like, oh wow, I really wasn't expecting that. You know, you look at a track list and you look at the track names and you go, what could they sound like? To me, that's part of the fun. But I realise I'm going around in circles. Point is, artists need to stop saying coming soon. It does my head in. The word soon doesn't seem to mean anything. I think soon in common parlance means like maybe a few months, not like 2 years, you know? Because it's like, oh, you know, we're coming with new tunes in 2024, Prodigy. Correction, 1 new tune in December of 2024. That's what annoys me, right? It's like the false sense of time scale. I mean, I know that, like, you know, they can't be like sure exactly when things are going to happen, because, you know, stuff like this is volatile. It's, you know, it's kind of unpredictable. But that's what I'm saying. Don't put words to it until you have solid things. Like, I know that Quadeca, I think, has said that the album Vanisher Horizon Scraper should be coming out this month. Whether it will, not a fucking clue. But what I'm saying is, don't say that until you know that, because then you're just going to end up with a load of really angry people in your comments telling you to stop teasing them and just give them the fucking album already, which, like, you bought that on your fucking self. In fact, it turns out, if Rough Trade are to be believed, which I've got no idea why they wouldn't be believed, because it's fucking Rough Trade, it's not even going to be released until mid-September now. So turns out, for lack of a better phrase, he was talking a load of fucking bullshit. But what I will do, just to finish off actually, is to give a few examples of unconventional album rollouts or project rollouts that I think actually work, dare I say, right? So, Rat Boy with his album Internationally Unknown in 2019, okay? That was quite non-typical, because what he did was basically release 3 songs from the album all at once, and only released 1 more standalone single after that. But even when the standalone single was released, he just released it as kind of like an extended EP of singles, right? Which, yeah, not the most normal way of rolling out an album I've ever seen, but what it did mean is that you got 10 minutes of material to start with, and then that was like, okay, cool, this is great, you know, because we've got a few songs, which means that, you know, you won't wear them out as fast, because that is one thing. If you're, you know, if you've got a hot single out, right, and people are like absolutely just rotating it over and over and over and over again, having that long gap between singles like Underworld do, that's kind of where the annoyance comes in, is that by the time the next one comes out, you've kind of burnt yourself out on the other one like 4 times over. Whereas with the way the Rat Boy did it, you know, you got 3 singles all at once, which means you're going to burn out a lot less faster. And in fact, by the time that Don't Hesitate came out, the 4th single, I'm pretty sure I hadn't even burnt out on the other ones to begin with. But, you know, I suppose that is a way to do it, you know. Give people basically all the singles at once. I won't mind that, actually. Like, if you came out in February and said, okay, here are 4 singles from the album's going to have 13 tracks and it's coming out in September, right? Like, yeah, that's a 7-month wait, but you're like, cool, I've got essentially already what would normally for any other artist be 7 months worth of singles. So, you know, we're all good. So, like, credit to Rat Boy on that as well. And also, that's how you don't kill your hype. Yeah, he gave the singles, but I'm pretty sure most of the singles were in the first half of the album anyway, with maybe 1 closer on the back end. But it meant that, like, you had, like, a vast majority of the album to still dig your teeth into once it got released. Gorillaz, Song Machine, that's another one. And I think this kind of rides the line very well between being an album and a singles collection. Because I think one thing is that making an album work in context is a very, very difficult thing, right? People got on Death Grips' ass back in 2018 because they released 6 singles off of, I believe, a 13-song album, 2 of which were interludes, so there were actually only 5 proper songs that were not released before the album came out, right? Which would go against my whole stance in this video, and to be honest, kind of does. But what I will say is that, again, this is really something where you have to take into consider album flow, right? I have not seen an album in my life where people have said that they hated a single, but then when the album came around, simply just because of where it was in the track list, people liked it way more. I've never seen that in my life before then, but do you know what? It's true. Like, 6 of the songs might have been singles, but how they were placed and kind of like, sporadically dispersed throughout the album with the new ones, it kind of created, it created a new context for them to exist in. If they released track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then that would be really fucking annoying actually, but they didn't do that. And to be fair, Death Grips is maybe the only example of a band I can think of that has managed to kind of recreate context, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Song Machine is basically a glorified singles collection, pretty much, for most of it. Actually, no, that's not true. So it had 7 singles come out, right? Which, that's a lot. Song Machine, in its standard kind of layout, had 11 songs on it, right? Which means that you got 4 new songs. But Gorillaz are maybe the only band I can think of in my life where the deluxe version of the album is often the canonical one, which is true. Which, because Deluxe Song Machine had 17 songs rather than 11, and it might be an hour and 5 minutes long, but that means that even if 7 singles were released, you've still got over half of the album not released, and they're dispersed quite nicely throughout the track list, and, crucially, it actually works well as an album experience. Probably because Gorillaz are one of those bands where a lot of their songs, because of the people they collaborate with, are so different in style, where it does kind of feel like a bit of a hodgepodge, a bit of a melting pot, but it feels like there's always going to be some level of excitement, some level of hype, which I don't think you necessarily have with an artist like Scarlord, where you can basically describe their style in a matter of a few sentences. You can't really do that with Gorillaz, and so even if you did have over half of the album released, you would have no clue what the other half of the album would have had in store for you. And so in a way, they've kind of become masters at, from the jump, kind of engineering their own hype, clearly just purely by virtue of how much of a stylistic chameleon they are, which fair play. And also putting a new extended version of one of the singles on there as well, or a new version, or maybe there's an extended coda, or it's a remix. I'm alright with that. It reminds me of the first Prodigy album to bring them back, is that the ethos when they released Experience was okay, a lot of these songs that are on this album were singles, but do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put entirely different versions of these songs on here, so you get more bang for your buck. That I can appreciate. And I'm not saying Gorillaz do exactly the same thing, but I'm saying that Gorillaz, because of how stylistically wide they are, they don't run nearly the same risk of killing their own hype in terms of an album experience, because an album experience of theirs is so varied anyway that you couldn't possibly know what's coming around the other end. Which I know in this case is kind of a bit of a get out of jail free card, but I mean, the credit goes for them really in terms of their creativity more than anything else. Another one is Tierra Whack with her pop, rap and R&B EPs that released in 2021, late 2021, which I know this isn't really an album, so to speak, right? It's a collection of standalone EPs, but simply just because of how the artwork is, the artwork is very clearly, 3 parts of an extended image. That's already pretty cool, and you're already kind of tying it together with, them being essentially 3 parts in the same experiment. But I think creating the separation also does a lot as well, kind of being look guys, these aren't all meant to be listened to as one album. I mean, I probably could, if I wanted to, take all the 9 tracks from each of the EPs and kind of rearrange them in an album order, which could be cool, but I think the idea is that they're meant to be either enjoyed as part of a playlist or just as their own standalone thing. And so I think, in a way, Tierra Whack's kind of done this thing of if it was anyone else. You know, if they wanted to release like, oh, these are like the 3 sides of the album. Yeah, if like her EPs were 3 sides of a vinyl album, that would piss me off. But it's because they're deliberately creating that separation. You know, there's not that same annoyance there, which, again, I know is kind of a weak and flimsy argument, but hey, what I'm going to say, not all of the arguments that I make on this channel do make a lot of sense, or aren't open to scrutiny. In fact, I'd say every argument that I've ever made is and should be, in fact, open to scrutiny, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Point being, by creating the degree of separation between the EPs, but still creating a through line, you've got a positive because there clearly has been some effort put into an artistic through line between the 3 projects, even if it is just in the artwork and the ethos, which I can appreciate. But also, there's that degree of separation created where you are only supposed to listen to them really as individual entities, meaning that if they were to be put together in an album experience, they would have less novelty to them because of the way that they're released. But because they're not that, it doesn't have that, as simple and weird as that might sound. Basically, I think the point I was trying to make with Tierra is that you've got the positive of the artistic cohesion because of, like, you know, the conjoined artwork and all that kind of stuff, but you've also got the lack of, like, the album experience limiting my kind of soured feelings towards the project. Because if they came out in bits and then it was, you know, a 9-song album that, you know, 2 of the bits you'd already heard, but she put that out as like the album format, my perception of it would be automatically soured because I would think that the way of putting out that album would have been lazy. But because there's that degree of separation there, it makes it that my feelings towards the actual music are tainted as little as possible. And I also would just like to highlight briefly the utility of surprise releases, which I think are actually quite a novel idea. Because I will say that as a music fan, right, a lot of the fun for me is the conventional album rollout, right? Let's say the next Prodigy album, right, comes out, let's say middle of next year, right? Let's say that. So they released the first single in fucking July, and they go, okay, the album's going to be out in December. That then is 5 months of me and the fan base being able to have a bit of fun. You know, more singles get released, maybe a few more tracks get road tested, we can start kind of scouring around for details. Or do you think this might be what the album's called because of this hashtag? You know, do you think it might be have this person collaborating on it because there was this Instagram post that came out a few weeks ago, you know, trying to find like leaked track lists and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, all that's fun because it creates engagement within the fan community, it creates hype, it creates buzz, there's a degree of novelty there because of how the build-up's handled. You know, that's all good stuff. But, and you know, so having a surprise album, where an album and all its details are essentially dropped out of the blue, that you don't get that same fun build-up and that hype. But what you do get is just the sensation of, dang, boom, album. And so you're like, wow, right. Also, number 1, this is exciting because I wasn't expecting it, but I love it. And number 2, you've got the whole album, no singles, so the whole thing is just an unfiltered, completely raw and new experience, which to me is a fucking cool thing. And Big Special just put out their brand new surprise album, National Average, right? Which I will say, their last album, Post-Industrial Hometown Blues, that ranked as my 3rd favourite album of last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if this new one went somewhere far up there, because I really, really enjoyed it, what I've heard of it. I've only listened through to it maybe 3 times, but I'm definitely going to be doing it more and more and more and more. We are so lucky that, like, or at least I felt so lucky, that one of my favourite breakout bands of last year, out of nowhere, just dropped a whole new quality heap of 45 minutes of material right on my lap out of nowhere for me to get stuck into. You can't ask for much more than that. Like, yeah, there wasn't the fun in the hype of the build-up, but what there is quality songs, and in a way, because there's no build-up, there's no time for it to be ruined by flim-flam or wankery or nonsense, and so all you get is just the quality of the songs, purely undiluted, just this is what the album is, enjoy it for what it is, and so you can really get your teeth dug into it, which as a music fan is a really exciting prospect. And like I say, The prospect of an album rollout is a very exciting one as well. But what I will say is that for any music fan, when you get an album rollout wrong, that can kill you stone dead, no matter how good the music is at the end of the day. So, in a way, I was way more excited to learn about the Big Special album because it came out of nowhere and because it's 45 minutes of entirely new unreleased material that dropped out of the blue for me to get my teeth into. That's exciting. Shout out as well to the new surprise Public Enemy album that just came out, which is absolutely fucking killer. I mean, they did put out March Madness, the closing track, as a single, but there wasn't really any indication that there was an album to come along with it. But then again, having like an extra 35 minutes of material just come out of nowhere is fucking cool as it is. But then for that material to be as strong and as fucking dope and awesome as it was, fucking yes please. For as great as the material off the upcoming Faithless album has been, I can attest to the fact that I am nowhere near as excited for that as I was for the Big Special album, just because of how the album rollout has been handled. Same with Quedeca, Vanisher Horizon Scraper, and in a way, I guess, same with Censor as well, because there is also a thing where if you leave an album building up for so long, it's almost impossible to live up to that hype, right? Like the Limp Bizkit album that took 10 years to release, they would have had to pull out the best album of their careers out from underneath them to warrant 10 years worth of hype. Same with Censor, as they've been, playing tracks or new tracks from this album, maybe, I don't know, because there's not been a confirmed track list or title yet. But let's say that every track that they've played live will be on the album. They've been playing material from this album for 8 years. Some of these songs are over 8 years old. To live up to that level of hype, I think this will have to be like on the level of Stacked Up, which is like a classic mid-90s rap rock album. Which I guess in a way, when you like tease new material and like slowly say that it's coming and coming and coming for so long, you do kind of slowly kind of erode your own hype away. Like, it's less like Faithless, which I think the way that they said that they were going to roll out the album just killed it stone dead instantly upon arrival. I think what people like Censor do, and with the worst kind of applications of the coming soon phenomenon, is you just kind of slowly erode any hype that was there left until it's just not there anymore, which I'm not saying that Censor have done, because I'm still incredibly excited for the album. But God, I would be more excited if they just gave the first details at 3 months' notice. I guess you also have the thing as well with people putting out music too often, where like, if people are putting out like maybe 2 albums a year, or even like an album a year, like how the hell are you meant to even like engender a sense of hype to begin with, given how often you put out music? Like I often think about Drake, right? People love Drake, but there is no way they are getting as excited as like they had been the last time for whatever next album he's got coming out, because he releases stuff like year on year on year on year. So like my point being, right, if you have like a 3-year gap between an album, you're able to create actual hype because of the scarcity. But with somebody like Drake or many other artists do the same thing. It's like if you're putting out music so often, there's no way people can get properly excited for it, which I just think is a bit of a waste of like opportunity in a weird way. Like, yeah, I'm sure people would love more music, but I'd argue that like getting your fans excited is also just as important. Which I know that might be a bit of a stupid thesis for me to end this video on, but like, hype means a lot, that's all I'm trying to say. And if you don't hype it correctly, that can really come back to bite you. Like I say, really excited for Champion Sound, really excited for Dissident Frequency. But my God, if they'd have rolled it out better than this, I would have been a lot more excited, let me tell you. And if there are any examples of album or music rollouts that have annoyed you, either because of their vagity or with their weird kind of novelty marketing tactics, do let me know in the comments, because it'd be nice to try get a discussion going on down there. For as rambly and nonsensical as this video is, I hope I've made some kind of point other than just me angry. If I haven't, feel free to let me know that as well, but be that as it may, thanks for listening, guys, and yeah, hopefully this was funny in the very least, I guess.